Today we're going to do our lesson on translating algebraic expressions and equations. First, let's quick talk about what makes up an algebraic expression. Well, the part that makes it algebraic in particular is the fact that it's going to have letters, which as you know we call variables. Also, there's going to be numbers. And then the add, subtract, multiply, and divide, those are called operations. Now, the difference between an expression and an equation is it's all going to be the same. So it's also going to have variables, and it's also going to have numbers, and it's still going to have operations. The difference is it's also going to have an equal sign. That's the difference between an expression and an equation. Now, this chart is going to be really useful when you're doing these problems, but you probably know most of them already. Now, I'm not going to go through and read this whole thing to you, but I do want you to pay attention to this right here. We have starred the ones where the order must switch. So like an alarm needs to go off in your head if you see those words. So if you look, we've got a few here. We have more than, less than, subtracted from, and I think that should be all of them. Okay? So pay attention to that, and I'll show you an example of that in a few minutes. Also notice down here when you need to be using parentheses, okay? When you need parentheses, if it says like, instead of it's 5 times a number, if it says 5 times a sum or times a difference or a product or a quotient, you're going to need parentheses, okay? Also, if you see a comma, that's going to imply that you might need parentheses for that as well. So let's look at some examples here. So notice number 1 says 5 increased by a number is 12. Well, they don't tell us what variable we have to use, so we can use any variable we want. So to represent a number, I might choose to use x. So 5 increased by x is 12. All right, so 5, when you increase something, doesn't that mean add, right? And you're adding x. Now think about what is means in math. 2 plus 2 is 4. Is means equals. And it is 12. So this one is going to be an equation because it has the word is. Try number 2. Twice a number decreased by 4. All right, well, to take twice a number, that means you need to multiply that number by 2. Remember, we're in algebra now, or pre-algebra. So we don't use things like dots or x's to show multiplication. Okay? So what I want you to think about is if you want to show twice times x, a number, if I just write 2x, we know that that means 2 times x. Okay? Then we want to decrease that by 4. So we want to subtract 4 from it. Number 3, 7 less than, okay, an alarm should be going off in your head right now. Okay, less than means you need to switch the order this is written in. So less than means to subtract, right? If you're going to take something less than it. Instead of writing 7 minus b, we need to do b minus 7. Number 4, the quotient of 4 and the sum of x and y. Okay, now, the quotient tells us we're going to be dividing. So the first thing I want you to do is draw your fraction bar, because we use that for division now that we are working with more algebraic things. We don't use the good old-fashioned symbol like that, okay? We are moving on past that point. Okay. So when it tells you the quotient, this word and here is like splitting up what you are dividing. So on this side of the word and is the number 4. So 4 is your numerator. So the quotient of 4 and, this is the part you're dividing by. The sum of x and y. Well, sum means adding, right? So x plus y. So that would be the quotient of 4 and the sum of x and y. Number 5. 3 less than a number, comma, times 20. Okay, so 3 less than a number. Let's start there. First of all, alarm bells, right there. We got to switch the order. So 3 less than a number would be x minus 3. Because remember, you got to switch the order here. Now, that comma tells you that you should put that in parentheses. Now, to show times 20, I could either put 20 out here, or more commonly, remember, you would probably see it written with the 20 out front, like when we use the distributive property. So I would probably write it that way, but it would accept it either way. Another way to think of this one is right here, 20 times, so 20 times the difference of x and 3. So you're not just taking 20 times x minus 3. You're taking 20 times the whole difference, which is why we put that into parentheses. Okay, so let's look at number 6. The quotient of a number and 9. So quotient means divide. Remember, the and tells you the two things you're dividing. So the quotient of a number and 9. All right, there is that comma. So it's a good idea to go ahead and put that in parentheses. Increased by 13. So plus, because we're increasing something, 13. Number 7. The sum of, so that tells me I'm adding. Now if you look for the word and, it tells you the two things you're adding. A number squared. Remember, squared means it's to the second power. So a number squared and 24. Now, totals 11. That's another way of saying that it equals 11, right? So if it totals 11, it equals 11. So this is another example of an equation. So the sum of a number squared and 24 totals 11. Number 8, the absolute value, so I need absolute value bars, right? So the absolute value of the sum, so I'm going to be adding something in here. 3 times a number k and 7 is 9. So 3 times a number k, remember to show multiplication with a variable, 3 times k, I can just put the 3 and the k right next to each other. That means 3 times k. So we're adding 3 times the number k and 7 is 9. So equals 9. And number 9, the quotient, so I'm dividing, of the square root of a number and 5. So remember that and kind of divides it out. The square root of a number. Here's a square root symbol. We use x to represent a number. And then we're dividing by 5. All right. Well, that's it for today. So now you can go ahead and start your work.